Hey yo, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Trump's literal Avengers are here today in the rally at Duluth, Georgia. This is a fantastic lineup, and what they have to say is incredibly important. But before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our great sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have the cure to buy inflation and Harris economics, but more on that later. Now, let's dive in.
And don't you want a president who's going to get the corruption out of Washington, D.C.? And don't we deserve a president of the United States that's going to make America healthy again?
Thank you, Bobby. Nobody gets a standing ovation like that. What's going on over here? That's great, Bobby. Great. Thank you. Thank you. And as you know, Bobby's great mother, she was a great woman, Ethel, passed away, so our regards and condolences to the family. Thank you, Bobby. Our movement is bringing together Americans of all backgrounds who believe in freedom, democracy, and a thing called common sense. Much of it's common sense. Conservative, liberal, it's common sense. Let me also call up two other incredible patriots who want to help save our incredible country. Former Democrat presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. And, by the way, she just became a Republican. And a great man, a brilliant person, and a true character, Tucker Carlson.
Something? I think Donald Trump's singular contribution to this country and the world is by his presence exposing a lot of things a lot of us believed as fraudulent, as lies. It's changed my life watching it. But the single biggest lie that Donald Trump has exposed is that this is a functional democracy, when in fact, it's a country oppressed by a small group of its unhappiest citizens for their own benefit. And the promise of this campaign is that Donald Trump will return this country to its owners. And that's its population, that's its people, that's its citizens. And I pray fervently that that happens. I mean it. That's why I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
We have seen from the very beginning how much President Trump has been attacked, smeared, censored, the government weaponized against a candidate for president and a former president in ways that have never been seen in our country before. The reason why this has happened is because he is the sole person who has had the courage to stand up against the uniparty war machine in Washington and have the audacity to call for peace and an end to war. While he has challenged the swamp creatures in Washington, all of you have resoundingly nominated him for president 3 times in the last 3 presidential elections. We know whose side he stands on. He stands on the side of the people. He stands on the side of peace and prosperity and freedom for all Americans. It's why I'm proud to stand with President Trump and why we, the people, must vote to send him back to the White House and make America great again.
Can you feel the energy? I don't like saying that I get goosebumps, but I'm actually having goosebumps right now. This is amazing. And I don't need to regurgitate everything they just said. You understand it. For instance, I've worked in food service and in food processing. I used to make protein powders and sometimes other products, but y'all, what we put in those products, some stuff's really good, some stuff's a little iffy. Fortunately, that's actually the cleaner side of food, of some of the food industry. You don't want to hear about all the messages of, illegal immigrants working in meat packing farms and illegal children working in meat packing farms. That's a part of the Make America Healthy Again movement, because these children do not deserve to be exploited. As a matter of fact, they deserve to be ripped from the arms of the cartel and loved as... I actually think anyone that has been directly trafficked by the cartel, I believe that they should become a type of American citizen. I don't know what. Still working on the idea. But they have been lied to by the cartel, pushed into basically what is slavery, and they're making our food. Now, I'm not saying that they're making the food dirty. I'm saying that that's a dirty way to do business. That needs to stop. And then there's a reason Europeans aren't a little fluffy like me. I'll admit, even though I'm also from the great state of Georgia, this is from Duluth. And Georgia's home to Chick-fil-A, God's Chicken, and it's also home to one of the filthiest restaurants in the world, where God and Satan come together to settle their differences, Waffle House. So I know what unhealthy food looks like, but it's delicious. Can't stop. But it's not just that food. It's in our processing. If you were to look at a food label in Europe, you'd notice that the ingredients are a lot smaller. I wonder why. I wonder what additives we keep on putting in that makes our food so, problematic. Hey y'all, I'm not exactly looking at retirement anytime soon, but my parents are, and friends of my parents are, and I'm sure either you or someone you know is looking at retirement and wondering, what do I do? How do I help prepare for this in this economy with this terrible president and with a vice president who basically coup d'etat him and is now looking to run for president herself? How do you protect against this? Well, simple. You go over to my friends at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have something called the Retirement Package Plan. This plan backs your wealth with gold and silver accounts. And furthermore, you will have direct access to these accounts. So you're not at the whims of Wall Street. You're not at the whims of inflation. You are in command of your own destiny. As a bonus, qualified applicants can receive up to $10,000 in free silver, plus a couple of other little goodies that they're going to package up for you, and you're going to be able to protect your wealth and your retirement. So go over to this link in the description below at colonialmetalsgroup.com or call this number 800-203-0422 and see how they can help you prepare for retirement today by backing your account with gold and silver. Don't delay your retirement, folks. Protect the money that you earned with Colonial Metals Group. They're here to help. And we're starting to see this movement across the board. And we're going to have a bigger conversation about what this really means in just a moment. And then Tucker correctly calls out the ruling class that is not serving the American interests, because they learned after World War II that the best way to avoid conflict is to basically placate the dominant class, and you can do whatever you want to the rest. And the dominant class has been in America. It used to be just the average white family, then it became white Anglo-Saxon Protestants for a while. Remember back in the 2000s where Christianity was the thing? Christian music was a booming industry. You had movies having Jesus and everything. Quite literally, we had the Passion of the Christ during that time. And then around 2014, everything officially changed, and it was now the dominant class of rich white liberals. And the rich white liberals are starting to lose their power here, and they know it. And it's great. Then you have Tulsi Gabbard calling out the war machine that creates misery around the world. There's a longer discussion to be had, because basically if we shut off that machine, Lockheed Martin isn't exactly going to be making as much money as they used to. And I know a lot of people that have worked for Lockheed at some point. It's a booming industry. and the world's kind of addicted to it. So we do need a nuanced conversation about that. But ultimately, what's really going on here? You are seeing a seismic shift politically happen before your eyes. You are either seeing the high tide of a movement or the beginning of its wave, depending on how we come out in this election. By all metrics, it looks like Trump's going to win and win bigly. And it's because the Democrats, if we were to look at a political compass, and I really need to get a whiteboard and Karl Rove this, because the Democrats are now a party of what I call the Democrat arc. And up in the authoritarian center in the corporate world, and it arcs all the way through the left down to the libertarian left. And that's where you get your AOCs, your literal communists, and then you have the people that realize we like the corporations, so we'd rather tell them what to do. The biggest irony is that while Democrats continue to call Republicans, those naughty boys from the 1930s, they look an awful lot like Mussolini's boys from the 1930s. So it's funny how that all works. So that's the Democrat coalition right there. It essentially makes an arc. It didn't used to be like this. The Democrat coalition actually used to be pretty much on the center with a little deviation to the right. It used to be more of just this straight line going up and down. And so it's bent out. And the average American that considered themselves Democrat, the leave me alone centrists, your libertarian, some of your libertarian leftists, and a lot of your libertarian centers, your Joe Rogans, for instance, and Tim Pool's journey, for instance, is also on a similar path. These guys were sort of lefty. They liked the leave me alone people, though you had your Reddit atheists saying, please get this religion off my back. And people deserve to be free, despite being a professing Christian, even though I'm terrible at it. I need Jesus, quite literally. But ultimately, those people were no longer being represented by the Democrat Party. So it's possible that they swing back eventually. It's possible. But as the Democrat Party has moved as a political entity, it left open these people, and Trump is quite literally the one man in politics who can bring them along. Ted Cruz couldn't do this. Josh Hawley couldn't do this. Jeb Bush certainly couldn't do this. Marco Rubio couldn't do this. They'd get some traction, they'd get some interest, but not as a massive group. See, Donald Trump just went on Joe Rogan and gave one of the most interesting conversations I ever heard. I thought I understood Trump, and now I understand him better than ever. It turns out he has a great knowledge of a whole bunch of things. He quite literally tied together why the whales are beaching themselves, and he's blaming it on the windmills. And he has a point that seems crazy to a normal person, but when you actually think about the logistics, they're very sensitive to the vibrations, and something caused them to go belly up, and they wash up on the beach. That stuff happens more and more. So it's natural to assume that this thing is probably related to this thing. That's exactly what Joe Rogan is all about. So Trump prepared for this, but he even mentioned some offhand comments that we're running out of concrete, and it's terrifying a lot of builders and developers. Well, guess what? That's been a problem for a while. We're running out of the type of sand needed for concrete. And so you'd think that, wow, this is a bunch of crackpot stuff. No. This is very important to the world economy, which means Donald Trump understands the logistics of how things actually work, which it's natural when you are a real estate guy, you're looking at maps constantly. And because of that, you get a bird's eye view of what everything is, which gives him a great window for geopolitics. And that's why he's worked so well. He has a fundamental understanding that not a lot of people have. And he has it more than a lot of people. I was floored by that presentation. And so, Trump is able to bring people like Joe Rogan into this sphere because he's not like everything else. And the Republican Party, a lot of conservatives are wondering, why are these people here? Why is Tucker Carlson a disgraced newsman, Bobby Kennedy, the radical environmentalist, and then Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat? It's because these people were a part of the coalition that the Democrats just said, nope, we're leaving you behind, screw you. Because they wanted to cater to the rich white liberals. Well, rich white liberals, eventually, you're going to have to cater to working class people, and rich white liberals aren't good with that. You're going to have to cater to black and Latino men as well as women. And black men, Latinos are running away screaming. The only real vestige the Democrats have in the minority sphere is black women and the LGBT community. And y'all, the Gays for Trump movement is huge. All right, these people are based on just a completely different level. So ultimately, we're watching a whole new coalition of politics. And we need to ask ourselves some basic questions. And I'll leave you with this. Is this coalition viable? We don't have to worry about that right now. But what we're ultimately realizing is that the criticisms from the left, that ironically were the solutions back in the 2000s, no new global wars, we've got to stop that, stop this nonsense. Then there's the maybe our food is unhealthy crowd. Your hippie liberals back in the early 2000s, they had a point. They didn't know how to articulate it, but they had a point. And thus, and by the way, evangelicals, can you tone it down a bit? That was the main criticism through the 2000s. I should know, I was there. I was young, but I saw it in the media all the time, and I started connecting the dots. And so I've known for years that this coalition was going to happen, and now it's here. So we have to ask ourselves, how far are we going to take this? Is this election going to be the high watermark? Or is this the beginning of a new era of politics? I think that new era is about to start. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.